Welcome back, everyone, to theCUBE studios here in Palo Alto, California. My name is John Furrier, host of theCUBE. Welcome to our Crypto Trailblazers series. It's a two-day event here in the Valley as Ethereum Foundation, their entire community in town, but also a lot of the other thought leaders and people making it happen, building the next generation infrastructure, going to bring in decentralized value. It's all happening. Siri's here, the founding partner of Ethereum Ecosystem Fund. He's part of the community that helps companies, one, get funding, support, and also help them build and navigate this ever-growing and changing landscape that's about to hit escape velocity. Part two. Siri, thanks for coming in today. Appreciate you coming in.
Thank you, thank you.
So I said part two, mainly because Ethereum has had a great run, I would say, on part one of the double header, use a baseball metaphor. You know, Ethereum, you go back to 2016, 17, 18, 19, now that range, that wave came in. Developers were building, was known for being very developer friendly. The language is there, building smart contracts. It was very exciting at that time, I remember vividly. And then, you know, the climate changed a little bit. Now we're back into real rationalization and validation that this is the future. There's scale, there's performance, there's value being created. You guys are doing a fund with an ecosystem. Explain what you guys are doing. How does it work? What kind of money is it? Is it money, or is it Ethereum? How does it work? Take a minute to explain the Ethereum Ecosystem Fund.
Right, so the team involved has a diverse set of experience, but the core part of it was we were involved in creating key pieces of infrastructure that, you know, for example, the one that I co-founded was the account abstraction team, and the goal was to make Ethereum as usable as a Web 2 application. So it shouldn't require you to have any special technical expertise to use applications in the space if you want to reach mass adoption, right? But the way it worked before with key management, and you know, it's like you have to be a cybersecurity expert to not lose your money, either like, you know, forget it or just have it stolen somehow, right? So we built that, and we built it as an open source public good. At some point, we became part of the EF and the Ethereum Foundation, and this wonderful community of projects formed around, which we saw a lot of potential in, and these are, you know, a lot of very talented teams, but they need help.
Yeah.
And there seemed to be an opportunity, so we were helping them just in our capacity as the developers of this project. But you know, many times they needed other forms of help. They needed capital. They also needed expertise to navigate just like the weird meanderings of crypto. Yeah. Right? There's like a lot of things that don't make sense. Yeah. There's also maybe like the pull to turn every good project into a Ponzi scheme. Yeah. So
exactly.
Yeah.
Greed, that kicks in. I mean, it's just natural evolution.
It is, and what we believe in is that if we want to maximize for long-term value, if we wanted the pie to be actually bigger in the future, it's hard to do that if you're just playing zero-sum games. Yeah. Right? Because it's just like an ever-shrinking pie. It also takes resources to play this game, and we're just like shifting money from one pocket to the other. But that doesn't benefit people in ways that generate sustainable value. Mm-hmm. So we want to help. We created the fund in order to help teams really focus on the long-term greedy path, where your eyes are on that ball, right? And also, I think there's something much more satisfying about building a protocol or a product that you know has a meaningful, positive impact on the world, as opposed to, okay, you know, we played another iteration of this game, and then, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I think that whole get rich, I want to be rich. I mean, I'm seeing really a confluence of tech, finance, and impact right now at this community level. And it's interesting, and I've never seen it, you know, in my career. You know, I've seen those other waves. You know, even all the conventional wisdom that you taught in school or you learn on the street is changed. I mean, the mindset, there's actually, you can do social impact. And I don't mean that in a philanthropy way. I mean it in like just in a human way. Like, you know, money's available, but it's not about just money. And I know there's a community angle here too. The success of DAOs, the success of group production. Now, we're what, 5 years into past COVID? I mean, the whole world knows how to work virtually. I mean, developers have been doing virtual remote work forever, right? So it's not, it's normal to them. But as the world connects and commerce comes in, relationships come in, and that's going to be driven by these apps. That's what that I see coming that no one's talking about. I mean, in communities they are, but mainstream, I don't think there's a lot of conversations around the collective benefit of synergy around this.
Right.
And that the long game is open source, kind of like where let's build it and make sure it's enough rules that it's scalable, secure. So I always love that about certain tech communities. It's like, let chaos reign a little bit and then rein it in, but it can't be one person, right, doing it. It's like, so I mean, I guess I'm just riffing here with you, but I like the idea of, you know, this notion, and then everyone's going to, next question is, okay, how do I do what I want to do? And you know, whether my intentions are to make money, it could be a fiduciary job, someone's in a banking role or some sort of money role. Okay, I get that. Someone might not be in. So how does this all come together? I guess the question is, what is the state of the community now, kind of with that context? What's your reaction to that? How would you describe the state of the market?
So we're at a very special time. If you go back to, I don't know, like 5 years ago, there were narratives floating around. We're going to do that. We're going to have all these experiments. We're going to change the world, but the technology wasn't there. We didn't know how to scale. We didn't know how to have, like, you know, UX for humans, regular people. We didn't know how to do privacy. Who wants a bank account that everyone can peer into and see like everything that's happening, right? Now we know how to do these things. The technology is ready, and that opens up opportunities that before were in the realm of the theoretical. So that's something that maybe like is a general basis for excitement. But I think the opportunities look very different in the developed world and the developing world. So in places that are very developed, like the US, the opportunity is for experimentation, right? There are all these things that it's hard to try within the existing traditional structure that we do things. It's very expensive. You need lawyers and accountants. And maybe it's a good idea, but we'll never find out because there's this energy wall, this barrier we have to overcome. And, you know, we're going to be credulous until we see examples of that actually playing out. With Ethereum, you can launch your own your own financial experiment by prompting an LLM creating smart contracts, right? And then deploying it. I mean, we're at the stage where I wouldn't recommend doing this without any experience. It's good to have experience in auditing, but you can deploy your own, you know, equivalent to various financial instruments just on the basis of having a good idea, and you don't have to ask permission from anybody, right? And that's so empowering. Now, most of those experiments will fail. We know this in advance, right? But that's how evolution works, right? Most mutations are bad, but then the accumulations of the rare ones that are actually, you know, they're adaptive. Then the accumulation of that is, you know, it gets to us having a conversation like this, right?
I was talking to an entrepreneur last week in LA, and he has personally had moved the needle on social freedom in certain countries by avoiding all currency, direct crypto, streamlining supply chain for either materials, and the commerce transaction was on the phones.
Right.
Directly on the phones. No banks.
Yeah, exactly.
Real commerce, real change, no waste, totally efficient, free market, delivery. Complete no-brainer when you see that. Because the alternative is you go to a consulting firm, they take the money, there's some deployment, who knows whose hands is in the money, what the impact gets to. So his whole point was by using this kind of direct approach to transaction value, there's two sides of that marketplace. There's the people who need, in this case, trying to reach social freedom, and they wanted to organize rallies, but they had no confidence. So having money allowed them to mobilize, you know, rallies for freedom movements that never would have happened before. And I'm like, okay, again, that's a use case. But that's the kind of thing we're going to start to see with the Ethereum and these contracts where you can make change happen instantly.
Yeah, you can experiment immediately. And if people like your experiment, they can pile onto it, and suddenly, like, you know, very quickly, you can have something that's making a meaningful, I mean, you can have a bunch of strangers come together to try to buy the US Constitution, right?
That was great.
You can, like, where did that come from? But it's possible. Like, we can do these experiments, and we don't need to get permission from the sort of traditional gatekeepers.
So speaking of gatekeepers, since you guys are one of the partners of the Ethereum ecosystem fund, you have how many other partners?
3 other partners.
So you guys have a fund, and you're trying to invest in projects for the betterment of the mission. What is the criteria? I mean, it's kind of like very VC-like. It's very much investment enabling people to be successful. What's the filter? Because if anyone can do it, is there a mechanism or a filter? How do you identify where to spend your time?
Right.
Is it case-by-case basis? Is it more certain traction points? A good idea? I mean, what's or is it intuition?
No,
Or all the above?
I think, I mean, the sort of the bland answer will be, oh, it's always, all of the above. But no, I think we're starting with a thesis of, what's coming. What are the doors that are now, we are on the verge of opening them, right? And then we want to support the teams that are capable of opening and going through those doors first, and being able to execute afterwards. So what that looks like is, I think, one of the most important things is having the right mix of talent in your team. If you get an amazing technical team, but then doesn't really understand the business, it doesn't understand how to do go-to-market, then that's not going to work. Go-to-market is essential for turning this thing into something that has a real-world impact. And we want to evaluate what future success looks like in a way that's very familiar to the way you think about things in traditional markets. We think ultimately, if this is going to move the needle, there have to be fundamentals, right? So if it's a protocol, it's protocol revenue, transaction fees. It doesn't have to happen up front. It doesn't have to happen in the first day. But then you have to see metrics like growth. So at the early stage, we want to see passion from our founders, that they are working on this and they're getting so much enjoyment and they're so curious and they're just driven to make it happen, and they will absolutely encounter problems, but they will route around them, right? And I think those kinds of people will survive the next crypto winter when it comes, and it will come, right? The market is extremely volatile. So I think what happens in some of these summers, you get people who are like, oh wow, I've heard you can make a lot of money in this space, and they come, but then when it gets tough, they don't stick around, right? And if you want to be there for that 10-year exit, you have to stick it through.
They used to use the term tourist come through. I think that's important because I think, to me, technical problems, you said you guys come from a technical background, there's a lot of good problems to work on. So if you're like an engineer or you like to solve problems, you mentioned curiosity, that's always, going to attract. The blockchain does attract a lot of technical people, because there's some cool things to work on. I guess my question would be, what doors do you see that's needed to be open, if you had to lay out a few obvious ones for the folks watching, for that would move the needle, that would be a team might want to jump on, or white space you see that are opportunities?
Right. I think I'll start with one example that's obvious. We need to have a decentralized equivalent of a banking experience that's as good as anything centralized out there, but it's available everywhere. You don't need to win the birth lottery to get access to it. And it gives you access to high quality assets, including the dollar, even if your local government is really intent on, stealing as much as they can by giving you only access to currency, unstable currency. That's a real problem in many parts of the world. And once we do that, we plug people into the global economy. So we turn the internet itself into an economic zone, almost like a free zone. And yes, you might still be physically living in another country, and maybe you don't have access to all the good services, but there's a lot of stuff that you can get access to. At least you can get amazing financial services through the internet. Then you can save for your future. You can start participating in a meaningful way. So I think that's the obvious solution that we're going to have. But then there are things that are slightly less obvious. For example, AI right now is a very useful tool, but it's a tool that's controlled by very few players. With the right infrastructure, it should be possible for us to create AIs that are community owned and operated in a way where you can verify what's coming into the model, what's coming into the training process, So I think with AI right now, you have the potential for a real trust problem. I mean, there's just you have no idea what goes into the training process, what it's going to do in certain edge cases, and a lot of these industries, they always start out as, okay, let's recruit as many people as we can, but then they shift into value extraction mode, and that's, to the degree that you don't have alternative, that's when it gets nasty.
So they monetize too quickly, or they just figure out.
As soon as they can shift from, okay, we're gonna like maximize value to the consumer, how do we like get the most of that into our pockets? That could be a bad situation. And so right now, without a decentralized infrastructure for coordinating the training and operation of these models, you can't have that, right? Also, it could take a lot of money to train these models. So you need to pool resources together, right?
Resources are key. What would you say is the biggest resource constraint? Is it talent? Is it in this market that you look at in terms of the founders? What are they? What's the contention that's out there? Is it time? Is it just intellectual capital, business model?
So it's always, progress is always bottlenecked on talent, but can also be bottlenecked on knowledge. So for example, you can have a great team come in, but they don't have the knowledge peculiar to this space. They don't know who they should be wary of raising money from. They don't know, the consequences of using this token economic scheme, or maybe deferring doing token economics at all for a little bit longer. So there's this knowledge that's not written down anywhere. If you ask an LLM, it's not going to give you the right answer, right? It's something that you kind of need to be on the inside of the community to understand how it works.
Yeah.
And then I feel like that could be something that ruins the opportunity of a good team to have a real impact. It can also be very confusing. And that's one of the things that capital, I think aligned capital that's aligned with real world long-term growth. I think that's constrained. That's also another thing that we hope to make better. Maybe the other part is just, how do you create a win-win scenario in terms of creating, there's a synergy between for-profit projects and the non-profit public goods that support them.
Yeah.
So one of the models that we're innovating on is these Spark agreements, where we will give you a grant, and then when you receive it, you are committing, to the degree that you successfully commercialize in the future, that you will create your own grants program in the future, and you will pay it forward. So it's like a viral pay it forward scheme. And if you get enough buy-in for that, suddenly everyone that's successful, they're dedicating some percentage of their upside to nurturing the ecosystem around them in a way that's just like this virtuous cycle. Yeah. That now you have better infrastructure. You don't need to have every team reinventing the wheel, because the pieces that's just a waste of time.
Yeah.
Right?
And so you get leverage out of that too. You
get a lot of leverage. Yeah.
Siri, talk about the week here. Obviously, we saw a great entourage of folks coming into the Bay Area. Yeah. There's a lot here too. There's a lot of people here who love this area too. What's it been like? I mean, Vitalik's in town. First time in 4 years, I heard. I remember meeting his mom at an event in the Bahamas in 2018. Crypto chicks. We had a good time with them. Just a great community. But now there's sunshine out right now. And today it's raining in the Bay Area. But what's it been like here for the group? I know you had a slate of activities for the whole community. What's been the vibe? Give us an update from some of the activities. What have you seen? Observations, commentary. What's your take on the scene here?
Right. So obviously people are a lot more optimistic about being able to do meaningful things in the U.S. now. So that's why everyone is coming back. Before Vitalik, or not Vitalik specifically, but people had to there's some risk coming to the U.S. and it seems to be an antagonistic relationship now with the crypto community. So that shadow has passed. But what I'm most excited about is I'm seeing very talented people that see legitimate opportunities.
Yeah.
to make a difference, right? And we're hoping, because it is bottlenecked on talent, like we said before, so we want to recruit them, and SF has the world's highest concentration of very talented, smart people in the world, right? So coming here is like an obvious place to start.
Yeah. What's been any things that surprised you in terms of some of the conversations or discussions or ideas? Not about projects or things you might fund, but just in general, was there any surprises like, wow, that kind of blew my mind listening to that person say that, or I saw some conversation themes kind of bubbling up that I didn't expect to see? Anything surprise you?
I think what surprised me was, like, at a mundane level, the events that we curated this week were oversubscribed, and this is the first time that we're organizing things in the Bay Area, so we weren't really expecting that. Also, I was surprised by the buy-in from reputable institutions that supported us very generously, gave us venues, Stanford and Berkeley. And I think what I was most surprised at is how the people in the Bay Area, especially SF, they kind of stepped up around something called DACC, the Defensive Acceleration Movement, that Vitalik is spearheading, and we're also organizing that tomorrow in Berkeley. And the quality of people that are coming to this event is mind-blowing. This is not just crypto people, or it's like, I think if it was, of course, we know people in crypto and they'll come to our event, but we're getting people from all these different categories, all these different domains. So that was I think very encouraging that we can work together on solving these problems. And maybe we don't see Ethereum as a silver bullet for everything. It's like rails for building solutions.
Yeah, I mean, it's a movement. I mean, Ethereum, again, I call it part 2 because it's back. It never left, but now we're on an acceleration. Love that mission. It is a movement. And the stories that are coming out of Ethereum are many. We try to document as much as we can on theCUBE, but stories drive movements. That's why I asked what you observe, because this is a movement. It has value. There's a long game clearly in play. I mean, just the things you mentioned, a banking experience for the globe.
Yeah.
That's borderless, would be cool. Like, thank you. Get that, someone work on that, please.
Yeah. Frictionless, immediate.
Just original, authentic, and trusted. I mean, we love that vibe. Yeah. So I'd love to get more stories. Let us know what's going on. Keep in touch. And congratulations on the fund. And there's work to be done. So plenty of things to fund, so I'm sure you got your hands full. Anything exciting on your plate that you can want to put a plug in for or put a shout out to?
Maybe one thing that I'm very excited about is there's this approach where you take the squishy probabilistic AI and then you pair that together with these very well-defined, like formally verified systems. And basically the formal system, the mathematical, it functions almost like a skeleton that constrains what the squishy, probabilistic part of who knows how it might hallucinate, especially if there are financial transactions involved. So there's a project called OK Contract that we're very excited about that's been spearheading that. And I think basically now one of the key insights that we've had through investigating this is we are, thanks to LLMs, on the verge of making programming accessible to basically a much larger percentage of the global population. But then the tools that are most appropriate are maybe not the languages that we had before, right? Because, when we had like very slow computers, we used assembly and we were programming everything with machine language, and then later computers got faster and we're using things like Java or C, and then later Java and whatever, because it afford more overhead. Now we have LLMs. It's a much higher level in which you can basically say, what is it you want to build, right? So the type of technology that enables that, I mean, it's kind of like try to take the old technology and like plug it into it. It kind of works, but it kind of doesn't sometimes. So there are ways of making that development process much more reliable, and also I think much safer, because AI applications, we don't actually know how they work for many cases. It's just this black box.
Marry the known math into the fuzzy, squishy.
Yes.
To give it some stability.
Yeah.
Guardrails, people call it guardrails, some people call it,
I mean, we did that with firewalls
Yeah.
in the early days of the internet. We had all these systems. Now we're networking them together, but it's a hostile network. It's not just like someone that like people that we trust anymore. And now, well, we can't make all the implementation details perfect, certainly not very quickly. So what did we do? We just like wrapped around this complexity with a simple set, with a much simpler system that just, okay, everything is closed. This system can have access to that system. Like you can only access this service.
White lists.
Yeah. So we need firewalls for AIs.
Yeah.
Right. And the firewalls cannot be complex, as complex as the AIs. We have to be also white boxes they're totally transparent. We understand exactly how they work, and they kind of work as the security guards of these very powerful models, which we hope will get more powerful in the future. But we want them to be powerful and also be aligned with our intentions.
Yeah.
And that's something I'm very excited about.
I mean, that's the kind of the make things reliable, give people the confidence to run everything on. You're going to need that movement forward. Siri, great to have you on the Cube here in Palo Alto. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you, John.
And spending time. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Okay, we are here for Crypto Trailblazers. 2 days of coverage, people making it happen, bringing their knowledge, open source concepts meets real world. You're seeing more and more applications coming. I'm John Furrier, host of theCUBE. Thanks for watching.